Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Children's Church. I'm so glad to have you here with me. Ms. Mandy is a little tangled up this morning. We've been talking about where are you? And today we're back on a mountain at the top and at the bottom. I'm calling this lesson Elijah and the Ups and Downs. I'm going to read to you a little bit, and then I'm going to paraphrase the story because it's a little long, but I want to tell the whole thing. But if you would like to read the whole thing, it's in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18, and we start at verse 20. So Ahab summoned all the Israelites and gathered the prophets at Mount Carmel. Then Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long will you hesitate between two options? If Yahweh is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him." But the people didn't answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I am the only remaining prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let 2 bulls be given to us. They are to choose the bull for themselves, cut it in pieces, place it on the wood, but not light the fire. I'll prepare the other bull and place it on the wood, but not light the fire. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of Yahweh, the God who answers with fire. He is God." And the people answered, "That sounds good." That's a wild translation. That sounds good. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Since you are so numerous, choose for yourselves 1 bull and prepare it first. Then call on the name of your God, but don't light the fire." So they took the bull and that he gave to them and prepared it, called on the name of Baal from morning till noon, saying, answer us. But there was no sound. No one answered. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar they made. At noon, Elijah mocked them. He said, "Shout loudly. He's a god. Maybe he's thinking it over," or he walked away. I love Elijah. "Perhaps he's sleeping and he'll wake up." They shouted loudly, cut themselves with knives and spears according to their custom, until blood gushed over them. They kept on raving till the afternoon, but there was no sound. No one answered them. Then Elijah said to the people, "Come near me." So the people approached. Then he repaired the Lord's altar that had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Israel will be your name." And he built an altar with the stones in the name of Yahweh. Then he made a trench around the altar, large enough to hold about 4 gallons of water. Next he arranged the wood, cut up the bull, and placed it on the wood. He said, "Fill up 4 water pots with water, and pour it on the offering to be burned on the wood." Then he said a second time. They did a second time, and a third time, and they did it the third time. So the water ran all around the altar and filled the trench. At the time for the offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet approached the altar and said, "Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and that your word I have done these things. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so the people will know you, Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back." Then Yahweh's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. When the people saw it, they fell face down and said, "Yahweh, he is God. Yahweh, he is God." Then Elijah ordered them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Do not let even one of them escape." So they seized them and brought them down and killed them. Elijah said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a rainstorm." Now, that is a huge display of God's faithfulness and what God can do. And they purged the prophets of Baal from the land. And then King Ahab's wife Jezebel, angry her prophets have been killed, ordered them to kill Elijah. Now, if you're thinking Elijah stood there and laughed because he is the only prophet of the true God who had just sent down fire from heaven, you would be wrong. Elijah was a prophet, yes, but he was also just a man, and he was afraid. When the queen ordered that, Elijah ran. He ran to the bottom of the mountain, and he hid by a tree. And he called out to God, "Why are you letting this happen to me? I did everything you said. Why is this happening?" And God sent him an angel. who told him to lie down and rest. I call this the take a nap and eat a snack story. It's good life advice. Before you decide on anything or that everything's terrible forever, drink some water, have a snack, take a nap. Everything's usually better afterward. God sent ravens to Elijah with food. He laid down and he rested. And he remembered who he was, who God was. And he picked up and he carried on. Why I think it's important to tell these two stories together is because sometimes the prophets in the Old Testament just become characters to us. Of course they did everything God said. Of course they were strong in the Lord. They knew all of these things. They were also just people. People are the same all these thousands of years later. Yes, God showed his might, showed his power. Elijah basically single-handedly drove worship of Baal from the land and turned the people back to God. And then he hit one setback and he sat down on the ground and he cried about it. And I think Elijah's a little relatable for that one. Because he poured his whole self into what he was doing, into what God asked of him, and he didn't have anything left when he hit opposition. That doesn't mean Elijah did anything wrong. It means he needed to rest in the Lord and pick up and start again afterward. So, where was Elijah? On the top of the mountain and the bottom of the mountain. This is Elijah and the ups and downs. He was both places, and both places matter to his story and who he was. Have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week with another Where Are You? And I will see you guys then. Bye. Just keep waving, just keep waving, just keep waving, waving, waving.